This screencast will teach you the basics of developmental theory and how we can use this knowledge to improve the quality of our teaching. Let's get started. Developmental theory has been studied for the past century by several theorists. Each theorist has constructed a model that views a specific developmental process. Every model attempts to understand and explain how human behavior is learned. Freud, Gesell, Piaget, and Erikson's works are the foundation of behavioral psychology. Bronfenbrenner's works to expand and include a biological perspective. Freud's theory stimulated considerable research on human behavior and served as a basis for the notable work of his student Erik Erikson. Gesell's theory on the nervous system driving human behavior is no longer widely accepted. However, it played a significant role in the evolution of child development research. In this presentation, we will focus on the work of Piaget, Erikson, and Bronfenbrenner. Jean Piaget was a Swiss 20th century psychologist and pioneer. He is known as the father of developmental psychology. He found that children's interactions and social experiences constructed their reality over time. His observation of children, including his own, helped him to track human development and frame a series of predictable stages. Piaget's exploration on child development has continued to fuel research around learning and education theories. His genius lies in his ability to pick out subtle cues in children's behaviors that give us insight into their cognitive functioning, making the cornerstone of his work the 4 sequential stages of childhood development: sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete, and formal. To apply this theoretical model into practice, we need to understand that children are active learners and require engagement with their environment. The world is experienced through senses and actions in stage 1. Its developmental application uses toys to facilitate learning. In higher education, we could introduce our new students to the tools of their trade, anything from a stethoscope to an EKG machine. It's all about the immediate physical and sensory actions. Stage 2. The child develops symbolic thought or imaginary play. They're a superhero. Everything around them is alive. Developmentally, they need a safe place to let their imagination run. In higher education, this would be where we use role play as a learning tool within a simulated environment, a safe space where we allow them to make mistakes and learn from them. Stage 3. Start to view the world with other individuals' point of view and begin to classify information. Developmentally, facilitating grouping tasks that facilitate object permanence is essential. In higher education, using case-based discussions with diagnostic categorizations can facilitate their mastery of content. Stage 4 is the final stage of cognitive development. The child's logical and abstract thinking has developed significantly. Developmentally, they learn math to enhance concrete problem solving, and they're taught abstract concepts like justice or freedom. In higher education, this is where we hope to lead our students. We can have students use authentic case studies to promote synthesis and evaluation. We can also use these studies to assess their application of knowledge and evaluate the efficacy of their treatment plans. Next, we discuss the theory of psychosocial development. This model was introduced in the 1950s by psychologist Erik Erikson. It builds upon Freud's theory of the 5 stages of psychosexual development. But unlike Freud's theory that stops at puberty, this one expands to include social dynamics and the psychosocial development into adulthood. This theory takes into account 2 opposing tendencies. One is positive or syntactic, the other one is negative or dystonic. If you develop the positive tendency, It will help you with decision making and resolve. However, if the negative is chosen, then it will result in maldevelopment, leading to difficulty with decision making and an inability to resolve conflict. For example, in stage 1, the conflict is trust versus mistrust. If the baby develops trust, then they gain the virtue of hope. If mistrust is chosen, this could result in a form of withdrawal. An example in which trust is developed for an infant is through a secure environment provided by a caregiver with regular access to affection and food. This will result in fostering hope within the child's core belief system. Many of our graduate students are between the ages of 21 and 39. According to Erickson, the psychosocial crisis is intimacy versus isolation, with the virtue being love. Successful relationships are an important part of an individual's identity. There is a direct relationship between socialization and communication skills, both inside and outside the classroom. Avoiding intimacy can lead to isolation, loneliness, poor communication skills, and depression, hindering a student's success. Successful completion of this stage results in happy relationships and a sense of commitment, safety, and care, which ultimately leads to love. In addition, having a sense of connection with others may help students to navigate rigorous academic programs, as well as peer and professional relationships. Applying this to a classroom, for example, in PA school, means fostering connections with classmates through group work, which allows students to learn professional collaboration, a necessary skill for a clinician. In addition, creating a mentor or mentee program and planning activities such as an informal coffee hour are all ways to emphasize the importance of relationship building. The third developmental theory we discuss is Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory and his view on how we set our behaviors. Urie Bronfenbrenner's work began in the late 70s and stemmed from the work of Lewin and Barker, who studied the relationship between individuals to their environment and to one another while analyzing behavior setting. He sees development as a function of the environment, how an individual interprets his environment, and the historical time frame, how an individual interprets the historical milieu. He proposes a reconceptualization of nature versus nurture to focus on how individuals perceive the multi-layered ecosystems in which they live. In other words, our behaviors are a reflection of our interactions with our perceived environment. In order to apply this theory, let's take a look at the center of the conceptualization, the microsystems. As you can see, the education microsystem falls within the learner's mesosystem, which is where all of the microsystems interact with each other. If learning is layered, then it could be amplified by placing our students in an authentic learning environment, as demonstrated by the influential settings of the exosystem. Here are two ways to implement this learning theory into the classroom. First, fostering a culture of learning means having a clear understanding of how class dynamics influence their learning, while taking into account those unseen influences that impact their learning. For example, giving students an opportunity to self-correct without penalty, acknowledging the real-world challenges of our individual students, and being sensitive to the impact of current social climates. Secondly, clinical exposure means supporting an exosystem that enriches learning with authentic, real-world experiences. Examples include lectures or laboratories with clinical specialists that actively work in the field, service learning opportunities with specific patient populations, like a day observing treatments at a clinic for amputees, followed by a tour of a prosthetics lab, And last but not least, student clinical rotations in a variety of settings. To summarize, first, according to many of the developmental theorists, there are stages, steps, or systems that interact or must be achieved by individuals in order to move forward. Number two, it is important for educators to understand the process of human development because it helps build foundational knowledge. Number three, understanding the learner's cognitive ability and current environmental context can help instructors design effective learning experiences. And lastly, these models provide a holistic perspective on development that can help educators understand the factors that affect growth, maturation, and learning behaviors. These theoretical models provide a particular lens on development. Each one reflects its creator's knowledge, interests, and biases. There is no one-size-fits-all model. Just like a photographer uses distinct lenses to capture different landscapes or images, educators can use theoretical models to help us frame and create richer learning experiences for our students. We hope you enjoyed our presentation. For more information on this topic, review our references.